Every plane crash has a final moment. Not minutes, not hours, just seconds. Inside the cabin, time breaks apart as the aircraft begins to die. This is the story of the last 30 seconds, when alarms scream, control is lost, and everyone on board realizes the truth too late. The flight began like thousands of others. The aircraft lifted off smoothly, its engine steady, its system showing green across the cockpit screens. The pilots were trained professionals, familiar with this route, confident in the machine they were flying. Inside the cabin, passengers settled into their seats. Some closed their eyes. Some watched movies. Some stared out the window at the clouds below. To them, the plane was safe, reliable, designed to protect them at every altitude. But aviation history shows a dark truth. Most disasters do not begin with explosions or sudden chaos. They begin quietly, with a small failure, a sensor giving the wrong data, a system behaving slightly out of line. On this flight, that quiet failure had already started. Hidden behind panels and software, something was going wrong. No one could see it yet. No one could feel it. But the countdown had already begun. The first sign of trouble was easy to ignore. A brief warning tone, a single message on the cockpit display. The pilots exchanged a glance and followed procedure. Everything else still looked normal. As minutes passed, the aircraft began to behave differently. The controls felt heavier than usual. The altitude shifted slightly without command. The pilots adjusted the trim and checked their instruments again. Training told them to stay calm, and they did. In the cabin, passengers felt nothing more than a gentle movement. No one suspected danger. The sky outside remained clear and peaceful. Then another alert sounded. Louder this time, more urgent. The pilots realized the problem was not correcting itself. A system that should have been stable was now giving conflicting information. What was once a routine flight was slowly turning into a situation where every decision mattered, and time was starting to run out. Without warning, the situation escalated. The aircraft suddenly pitched downward. Alarms erupted in the cockpit, overlapping and relentless. The pilots reacted instantly, pulling back on the controls, trying to stop the descent. But the plane did not respond the way it should have. The instruments showed one thing, while the aircraft felt like another. Confusion replaced certainty. The crew tried to identify the failure, switching systems, calling out procedures from memory. In the cabin, the change was violent. Passengers were pushed against their seats as gravity shifted. Drinks spilled. Luggage rattled. Fear spread faster than any announcement. At that moment, the pilots understood something was deeply wrong. This was no longer a manageable issue. The aircraft was slipping away from them, and the truth was terrifying. The final moments were chaos wrapped in silence. The aircraft dropped faster now, cutting through the air at an unnatural angle. Wind roared against the fuselage like a scream that never stopped. Inside the cockpit, warning lights flashed without pause. The pilots fought for control with everything they had left. They pushed, pulled, reset systems, and called out numbers that no longer made sense. Training collided with panic. There was no checklist for what was happening. In the cabin, oxygen masks fell. Some passengers reached for hands beside them. Others stared forward, unable to move. Seconds felt endless. Every heartbeat sounded louder than the engines. This was the darkest moment, the point where hope faded and the realization settled in. The plane was not coming back. The impact ended the flight, but it did not end the questions. Investigators would later arrive at the wreckage, piecing together metal fragments, data recorders, and the final sounds from the cockpit. Every second of the last descent would be studied in slow motion. They would identify failures, missed warnings, systems that worked against the pilots instead of helping them. On paper, explanations would begin to form. Charts, reports, and conclusions would try to give meaning to what happened. But some things could never be recovered. The exact thoughts inside the cabin. The final emotions in those last seconds. The silence between alarms. The plane stopped in those final moments. But the mystery of the last 30 seconds continues to live on. The last 30 seconds inside a dying plane are more than a technical failure. They're a reminder of how fragile control really is. One moment, everything is normal, and the next, there's only gravity, fear, and silence. And once those seconds begin, there's no turning back.